Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least 50 people are killed in a brutal raid on villages in northeastern Nigeria. The killings highlight the challenges in dealing with the growing problem of banditry in the region. Also, as dozens and possibly hundreds of HIV-positive South African women struggle to come to terms with the physical and psychological damage done by forced sterilization, we talk to rights activists calling for the government to do more about the discrimination faced by people living with HIV. And the regional bloc for West Africa calls on Guinea Bissau's army to stay out of the country's current political crisis, which has seen 2 presidents being inaugurated in less than 24 hours, being quickly followed by one resigning because he feared for his life. But first, troops have been sent into parts of Kaduna State in northeastern Nigeria, where at least 50 people were killed in attacks over the weekend. Communities were torched when gunmen raided 5 villages in Igabi district on Sunday. The government has blamed the violence on bandits from neighbouring Zamfara state. Sam Olukoya joined us now with more from Nigeria. Sam, so why would bandits from Zamfara go out of their way to target communities in Kaduna?
Well, sometimes last year, the government in Zamfara state had a deal with these bandits. Actually, Zamfara state has suffered most from this issue of bandits. And what the government did was to have a deal with these bandits, which many feel was quite lucrative. They call it an amnesty, and they stopped the attacks in that state and moved to Katsina and Kaduna State. And this is what we've seen, that today the governor of Kaduna State, when he visited this area, made an insinuation that we are not going to do deals with bandits, we are not going to negotiate with them. Clearly, even though he never mentioned Zamfara by name, it was clear that he was making a reference to Zamfara State, that you have done deals with these people, and all they do is to cross into our state, cause havoc, and then move back into Zamfara state for safety. And we've seen this repeatedly since the bandits were granted amnesty in Zamfara state. And it has been quite controversial as to whether you should arrest these people and jail them, or you should go into a lucrative deal with them. But this is what we've seen, that it has really backfired. It stopped in Zamfara state, but now some other states are feeling the harsh effects of the deal that was done in Zamfara state.
Thanks very much. Samuel Okoye there for us in Nigeria. Now, Senegal's confirmed its first case of coronavirus, the second in sub-Saharan Africa. The patient's believed to be a Frenchman who visited France before returning to Dakar. Nigeria saw its first case last week when an Italian national returned with the virus from Italy, which is a hotspot for the disease. Elsewhere in Africa, Algeria has confirmed 3 cases, Egypt 2, and Tunisia 1. Overall, the outbreak has disrupted air travel globally, and many African airports have ramped up screenings of passengers for coronavirus. Travel bosses on the continent are trying to be cautious, but stay restrained.
We're not nervous. We're just busy trying to manage the situation as it changes from day to day. We're not nervous in the fact that, the whole world will collapse. We hope not. We're still hopeful. We know that it is a serious situation, but we don't want to be party to, a phenomena of over-panicking. And there is no reason to panic. The world has gone through worse situations than the coronavirus and have managed it very well.
Now, it's hard enough living with HIV, but for dozens and possibly hundreds of women in South Africa, that challenge has been made even more difficult by forced sterilization. At more than 7 million, the country has some of the highest numbers of people with HIV in the world. A recent report from the Commission for Gender Equality has detailed the discrimination, mistreatment and human rights violations suffered by at least 48 HIV-positive women in South Africa. Between 2002 and 2005, at least 15 public hospitals in the country. The victims, many of whom were in labour at the time, say that medics threatened to stop helping them if they didn't sign sterilisation consent forms. Others say that they didn't know what they were being asked to sign. And at least one woman only found out that her uterus had gone a decade after she'd gone in for a delivery. Now, all have suffered through anguish over the betrayal. Siham Samai is from the Director of Women's Legal Centre, and she joins us now. Thanks very much for speaking to us, Siham. First of all, why would doctors, nurses and others responsible for the vulnerable do something like this?
Good evening. I mean, one of the challenges is the stigmatization around HIV positive women, as well as the various cultural assumptions that HIV positive women are either promiscuous or that they should not have babies. And the challenge is to be able to address that also, and that behavior of nurses and doctors, and to work that into the ethical training, because we need to be able to understand that behavior need to be able to shift also within the medical fraternity.
And why did it take so long for these 48 cases to come to light?
As you can see, I mean, the referrals was done in between 2002 and 2005. But one of the problems is that many of these women only found out many years later that they were sterilized, because the families might have asked, why are they not pregnant? And we do know the cultural stigma also in women not having children. So there's a lot of pressure. And then only they go to a hospital to find out. And many of these women only found out many years later that they were forcibly sterilized, or coerced at least into sterilization.
And what do you want to see happen next?
Well, the CGE did a comprehensive report, and there's more than 9 recommendations. One of it is actually, one of the recommendations is an engagement between the Department of Health and the 48 women. But in addition to that, they also said that the various councils, the nursing councils, need to look at the Sterilization Act, need to look at the actual guidelines and to see what training is required. There's also been a great emphasis on administratively storing files. And there was a very strong recommendation that the Department of Health have to look at the filing systems, because many of those files were missing and they could not provide the information to the CGE. So the most important is to be able to monitor the 9 recommendations of the CGE.
And what's been the public response to news of these cases?
Well, I mean, from different civil society organizations to political parties, I mean, this is an issue that has been, it's been in the news before, and the department has not done anything. So civil society organizations have taken this issue forward, and I think it's important that the voices of those women who have been sterilized are being heard. And I think that the CGE report, where they speak about the engagement with those 48 women, is critical, because they need closure.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Now, at least 25 people have died in a bus accident in South Africa. The driver reportedly lost control before the vehicle rolled down an embankment in Eastern Cape Province on Monday. It was the deadliest crash in the province since 2015. The country's transport minister has spoken of the shock of losing so many lives in a single accident, and President Ramaphosa has called on drivers to exercise extra care on the roads. Now, the regional bloc for West Africa has called Guinea Bissau's army to stay out of the country's current political crisis. Now, this comes after 2 presidents were inaugurated in less than 24 hours, quickly being followed by one resignation because he feared for his life. Wasim Cornet talks us through.
The pressure was too much to handle for Cipriano Kasama, the head of Guinea Bissau's National Assembly, who was named interim president on Friday, announced just 2 days later he was resigning as the nation's leader due to security concerns.
All security conditions must be met for an interim president to do their work properly. That's not the case for me.
My life's in danger, the life of my family is in danger, the life of our fellow citizens is in danger.
This weekend of political mayhem comes after weeks of uncertainty. Domingos Simoes Pereira, the PAIGC candidate who lost the December presidential election, has refused to recognize the results and is still awaiting a Supreme Court ruling. That led to his party holding a ceremony to inaugurate Cipriano Kasama, the head of the National Assembly, as interim president of Guinea Bissau. Just a day earlier, it was Omaro Sissoko Embalo, the official winner of the presidential election, who was inaugurated during a private ceremony at a luxury hotel. But Kasama's decision on Sunday to give up on the presidency has led to anger within the party.
He can't do that. He's a freedom fighter. He can't just turn his back on the struggle.
Since Friday, the army has moved into several of the country's institutions and has taken control of state media, but it has not said which side it had decided to support.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining me. Do so again if you can. Take care.